Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the latest My Balls, My Rules podcast. I'm delighted to be joined once again by Decca Raleigh and Harry Dole. How are you, boys?
I'm
So
good,
I
mate.
Well, yeah, I'm very well, thank you. So I think we should just get straight into it. So the big news kind of for us this week has been the decision for the National League to not really make a decision and kind of change their minds midway through the week. So how about Deck, you start us off and tell us that story?
So essentially, what happened was the EFL obviously made their decision, which we discussed last week, to promote and relegate teams from League One and League Two. And ever since the last few weeks, the National League had essentially tied themselves to the EFL. So essentially, whatever the EFL were going to do, the National League were going to follow suit and keep that partnership aligned together. However, the National League kind of went back on themselves a little bit, and they gave a new proposal in a meeting on Thursday afternoon last week to board members in the league. They basically said, we're going to relegate Chorley, who are 24th in the National League Premier, and they're going to promote Kings Lynn, who would be top of the National League North on points per game, and Wildstone from the National League South. So that was the proposal that the National League gave, which wasn't quite in line with what the EFL were doing, although the National League did also say they were going to do playoffs. But I believe step two, so National League North and South, they got an email, I think, on the Wednesday night, very late, saying that the government didn't class step two, so the sixth tier of English football, as elite sports. They wouldn't be able to play football behind closed doors in them playoff games. And that has caused quite a big uproar. Most notably the hashtag Promote2 campaign headed by York, Havant and Waterlooville, and Dorking Wanderers, as well as all the other retrospective teams in and around the playoffs in both the leagues. So it's caused a bit of an uproar, a bit of a delay in the inevitable of promoting and relegating teams. But let's go to Harry. Harry, what do you think about all of that?
I totally agree with promoting two teams from the division, and I think I mentioned it last week. It has to be done by playoffs, and just you can't have two teams go up automatically because it's never been the way in non-league football. There's one spot, and you know that from the outset. With the Promote 2 campaign, I mean, this is nothing against York or Havant, who have been at the forefront of this, but the way it's come across, it seems quite heavily that their interest is just them two clubs. And you can understand York's frustration because they actually were top of the league when play ended. So you can get that. For me, where the frustration lies is with Havant more, because they're talking as if they're owed something, and it's nothing against like them as a club. It's just the way it's come across to me that they're sort of owed something, but despite being 3 points behind Wildstone, and Wildstone had a game in hand, Deck. Is that?
Yeah.
So for me, it just feels like they've been a bit dismissive of all the other clubs, and it just seems like if the playoffs are played, it's a foregone conclusion they're going to go up. But for me, I feel like it's you have to play the playoffs. And then for the Maidenhead, Ebbsfleet and Fylde, and even as an Ebbsfleet fan, you know at the beginning of the season, if you're in that bottom four, even with the Bury situation up in the air, you're more than likely to get relegated. So you know that when the season starts. That's totally understandable. I can get them four teams going down. But in my eyes, you need a playoff system, because just like four teams go down from the National League Prem, only one team from the North and one team from the South go up automatically. So the playoffs must be played. That's my opinion, and that's where I stand on that.
I do agree with you there, Harry, in the sense that there's been a rhetoric sort of coming largely from, I say, Havant and York, that they're the two that deserve to come up. Intentional or not, it's kind of been like Promote 2, and then the two pictures there, the two teams there that are pictured with it is Havant and Waterlooville and York City. So whether that's intentional or not, it has come across like these clubs are saying, we deserve to go up if playoffs can't be played. But actually, in the same sense, you could then say, well, Ebbsfleet, Maidenhead, Fylde haven't had a chance to play their way out of it. So why did these teams get their chance to play their way to go up? Obviously, like Harry said, they finish in the bottom four, so they have deserved to go down. But it can also be justified that those teams deserve their chance to play out as well.
Yeah, totally. I mean, like they're getting the chance to play for promotion, and then the three teams aren't getting the chance to play for safety. But like I said, with something like this, it's just the unknown, like how to deal with a situation like this. And I think that's why the National League have backtracked 3 times in the last 5 days. I mean, I've never known someone so indecisive, like an organisation so indecisive.
And it's been
It's
quite
like me
strange.
ordering a Domino's.
It's been strange as well, with obviously because there's been that government influence as well, in the sense that there was decided that Step 2 didn't count as elite sport, but the National League were never specifically told that, according to the Department for Media and Sport. But then that was just instantly applied because it was deemed that they weren't elite sport because they weren't full-time athletes. So it kind of was strange that the National League didn't think to check that. And I don't know really how much, because then you've got the conspiracy theorists among the football fandom, as it were, being like, well, no, the National League doesn't care about Step 2 and so on and so forth. And I think that there, as much as it's probably not true, could cause some significant harm to the National League's reputation overall.
Yeah, I agree. The point I want to make with the Promote 2, obviously you mentioned about the email that they got about the elite sport. I think the definition of the elite sport is a little bit of a grey area, because when you look at Step 2, because even though you do mention full time there, Sam, it doesn't actually say full time in the law, I guess, the rule. I'm not really sure what they call that rule of elite sport meaning, I guess. But there's no mention of full time, and just rather the fact that players get paid. And we all know at Step 2, every player that plays in Step 2 does get paid, for the most part. I mean, that was the argument that Jerry Gill at Bath City made in the non-league paper this week, and Paul Doswell haven't as well. They both said and agreed that, you know, every club at this level, they do get paid something. So, you know, that was their side of the argument. But obviously, as you say there, they don't get their whole living, or the majority of their living wage from football. So it is a little bit of a grey area. But I do believe with the Promote 2 campaign, I mean, Dorking were really pushing it as well, as much as York haven't. I mean, Mark White was really pushing the boat out for the Promote 2. And they sit 7th and will finish 7th in the National League South. So literally, they're technically at the most disadvantaged position of the playoffs, but even they were still really pushing for it because, you know, it's very big for their club. They've just been promoted from the division below. So I think we obviously know Henry and Dan. Henry, the media manager at Havant and Waterlooville, and Dan at York City. And I think if it was me, I would have done pretty much everything that they did except the logo, which had both their badges on, because it does unintentionally come across like they are pushing for themselves to go up automatically rather than a playoff. And I know that's not their message, but that it does kind of unintentionally go like that. If it was me, I would have probably, I know to be hypercritical or whatever, but if it was me, I'd probably have had just the one badge for your club and changed like the profile picture of that on Twitter. Then the likes of Dorking, Bath, Brackley, whoever is pushing for that campaign in the 2 respective leagues, they can do it without it looking like it's just York and Havant and no one else. You know what I mean?
Because it was obviously arranged between York and Havant as well. I kind of think what they should have done is made a template for all the clubs in those playoff positions with the hashtag Promote 2 underneath it. So you can have, say, the Slough Town badge, Brackley, and whoever you mentioned then, they could then change their profile picture and cover picture. So then the Promote 2 campaign encompasses all the clubs that are in playoff positions and makes it kind of less of that, what was obviously unintentional, but the perceived kind of view of, oh, Havant and York finished second, so we deserve to go up, rather than say, we're seconds a playoff position, so is third, so is fourth, so is fifth, so on and so forth, and we all deserve the chance to go up.
No, I absolutely agree. And, you know, you look at virtually every club that's in a playoff position has at least put out a statement about their intentions in terms of the National League vote. I saw Slough definitely did one, Slough Town. Bath City put one out. So, you know, virtually every club in both divisions has put something out. So I think if they'd have done something like that, I think overall it would have been a more positive message for all the clubs involved. I think it'd be 12 clubs involved across the two leagues. So, you know, it's not just two clubs. There's 12 possible clubs that can grab 2 promotion spots. So it's definitely, if it does eventually get played, it's all to play for in both the divisions there.
If you look through the vast majority of those clubs who are in those promotion positions, a lot of them aren't traditionally clubs, especially in recent years, that would be considered a National League club. Like you look at the likes of, say, Slough, Bath have only been there once in the last 10 years or so. Dorking Wanderers have obviously never been there and have existed for 20 odd years. So I kind of think these clubs, like, it's especially massive for them because they've never had that opportunity before, and that's why they're kind of going to fight so hard for it, and rightfully so.
Yeah, I agree.
I can see their frustration there. Sorry, Deck. I mean, I can see their frustration there. I feel like that reason there is another reason that the idea of the promoting 2 is probably overlooked in a way, because you've got teams, and this is just like theories thrown around that I've seen on various National League pages, but you've got Fylde and Ebbsfleet are 2, or at least were, I know Ebbsfleet probably not as much now with the financial troubles, but Fylde, 2 of the most financially stable clubs in the National League. And then you take them away and you chuck a Brackley and a Slough who've never been there. Ultimately, it looks to affect the National League. And I do actually feel like that's probably played a part in that original proposal.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of feel like, well, at least say the kind of, I say it was like conspiracy theorists earlier, but the idea of like protecting your Fylde to have this Football League plan until 2022. If you relegate Fylde, that's not going to happen now. Like, in the kind of nicest way possible, it'd be very hard to go back to back.
I think Salford the only team off the top of my head I can think who have gone back to back.
Probably Fylde, not for Wimbledon.
Oh yeah, Wimbledon. I should know that. Kedwell scored.
But before that, there's going to be very few. Like, say, Yeovil loitered around in the conference for years before they got their chance.
Look at Wrexham.
Yeah, 16 years now. Going into their 17th season next year, because obviously they're not going to go up now, which is ridiculous because they're a massive club, and you go there and you see that stadium. You see, obviously, there's the terrace that's never open anymore and it's got weeds growing out of it. But you can imagine that ground in its heyday being an unbelievable atmosphere, and it still generates something very good now and gets 3,000 plus every single week.
I mean, I was watching BT Sport the other day on the Football Classics, and they knocked Arsenal out the FA Cup.
Yeah, thanks for the reminder, mate. Cheers.
Cheers, mate. Just to show how tough it is once you fall into the cycle of the National League, how hard it is to get out. And you can see why they're campaigning so hard to try and climb divisions, and why Fylde, Ebbsfleet and Maidenhead and even Chorley now are just trying to fight just to stay in the division.
Yeah, I think Chorley is a strange one, really, because if it does go ahead and they go down on their own, if Promote 2 doesn't happen, they'll be the only team in non-league football, like, completely to be relegated. And do you think that's unfair?
I don't want to sound like really harsh, but they've been the worst team.
Yes.
I mean, like, is it 24 points?
26, I think, but you might be right with 24. It's somewhere mid-20s.
Like, it's kind of like hard to argue. And if you're not going to send up Havant and York, and then you've got to stop Wealdstone and Kings Lynn, one of them from coming up, like, how do you do that? How can you stop one of them champions going up?
I don't think you can justify that at all, say one of Wealdstone or Kings Lynn.
I mean, in my eyes, like I said earlier, I'm standing here and I agree with Promote 2 via playoffs. I don't think you can keep any of the... I mean, it's free. It's not 4, is it? So maybe stay up. I mean, you can't justify Fylde and Fleet staying up. And that's coming from a Fleet fan for over 13 years. Like, we... backs against the wall. We deserve to go down.
But that's like you've said before, though, many a time, that's what it costs you for having a bad August, September, because that's a third of your season right there. I think it was 9 games in August this year. Then you've got another 5 games in September.
I think the 9 games in August we had 1 point, and then the last 30 games we sit 16th in the league. But it's not a competitor. It's not like a knockout competition. Like you build points, and that's where you are.
Yeah, just because it was a longer period of time between games, because it wasn't Monday, Tuesday, Friday, Monday with like bank holidays and stuff, like, because obviously that's what it is in for that summer period. If you don't amass the points, then
I mean, for teams like Ebbsfleet and Maidenhead, we pretty much built 2 new squads from last season, so it was always going to be difficult. But yeah, I think the writing's on the wall now. Just quickly with elite tag, I wanted to, because when Deck was talking about it, I wanted to bring up, but where do you guys stand with it? Because when I think of elite football, I think of like top level Champions League. And I think that word is a horrible word to compare to when you're classing a part-time and a full-time club. And I feel like the wording really needs to be worked on. That. I mean, the wording of elite.
That's why I kind of said it was a grey area, because I agree. They need to put full-time in there. Like full-time needs to be added to that definition, I think, because to be an elite footballer, that has to be your profession, like your bread and butter. And to be a professional footballer, you can't be part-time. That's just my opinion personally. So they to make that less of a grey area, I think they should add full-time into it. Although, again, you could be earning a full-time wage without being full-time. Like £800 a week to a lot of people is a full-time wage, but there's part-time footballers that are on that. So it is it's definitely a grey area, but I think if you add full-time in there, that solves a lot of your problems. I don't know about you, Sam.
I think looking at that word elite again, I think that kind of has been Twitterfied, in the sense that when you say the word elite, you think of players, oh, that player's so elite because he did this thing, he did that thing. Ronaldo, Messi, I kind of think if you're talking in terms of ability, the elite is the best of the best. And that is your Ronaldos, your Messis, and that's probably it at the moment, really. You can class as that world-class elite level. But in terms of, say, elite in kind of a job circumstance, that could be, say, the top 1% of footballers in our country will play at step 6 and above. So is that the elite? It's kind of...
That's what I'm thinking.
So, like, it's hard to find that balance, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And I think
you do need to be in the top 1% to be an elite at anything. If you're in the top 1% of media professionals, then you're going to be an elite media professional. You know what I mean? So you definitely need to be in the top 1% of that bracket that you're trying to assess there. So if they need to work that out themselves and work out how many people play in this country and things like that before they can come to that judgment.
It's going to be...
the podcast has turned into countdown with definitions of words. We're getting Rachel Riley on next week's
But I do believe it's relevant, though, in the sense that because it's such, like, say, Dex said, it's a grey area, like, we actually don't know what any of it means. And I think it is the government covering its own back, really. So in case there's a second spike, they could be like, no, that's not happening, but the Premier League can happen. Because the Premier League can happen because it's in such a controlled environment. Whereas, say, the National League and National League South is going to be a lot less harder controls, the clubs involved and due to finances and stuff like that. But so I think that's more in the sense it's not been as kind of tightly written, because it gives them that chance to be like, to sack it off if they need to sack it off.
Yeah, I just feel like using that word, it's just made it so much worse for the whole situation. Because now you've got York, who are a Football League club for 4 or 5 seasons back to back, and then back to back relegations, and now they're gone from being a professional Football League club to not being classed as elite. So
yeah,
this is the problem.
Everything in the air.
This is because you've got 2 clubs. It's York City and Havant and Waterlooville. They're not in an elite league, but they are full-time players. Every single player is Havant are full-time, yeah. So they're both of them teams are stuck in an area where they are one thing, but they're not the other. So that's why it's an extremely grey area when you're talking about elite sport in that definition.
If you look in those playoffs as well, they're probably the only full-time club involved out of all those teams there. So I know for a fact Slough aren't full-time. I know at least last season Bath weren't full-time. I don't know if that's changed now. I'd be surprised if it has. But my knowledge of the North isn't great either. But I can't imagine that's... Who's that, sorry?
I don't think Dartford are.
No, I don't think they are either.
Dartford are. No, Dartford aren't. I don't think any... I think Havant are... Yeah, I can't talk much for the North, but I'm pretty sure in the South that Havant are the only full-time squad in that play.
Are Dulwich not full
How
time
about
anymore?
Billericay?
Dulwich are full time, but they're not anywhere near a playoff place.
Yeah, no, I'm just
Dulwich are
saying
near
in the
relegation
south
zone, I think.
South in general.
Oh yeah, so there's three. So, okay, so in general, I'm pretty sure, as far as I know, there's 3 full-time clubs in the south, which is obviously Havant, Dulwich, Hamlet, and Maidstone as well.
Billericay.
Probably
No,
not
Billericay
anymore with
aren't.
Tampling being gone.
No, they're not. They're not anymore.
Yeah, it's a unique situation, isn't it? Because obviously, we'll go with that buzzword again. Is unprecedented. It's because it really is, and especially for non-league football as well. Because everything below Step 2 has been sacked off by the FA, which was probably a little bit too keenly done,
Sure.
to be honest. But that is what it is now. But so yeah, the likes of Hungerford are very, very lucky because they're not in this conversation for relegation. But I do think there is no right answer, and that's where I think the National Leagues had to be like, you guys decide, all you guys are involved in playing this, so this is your problem, and we're just going to give you the framework for it, but they can't decide on that framework, and I think that's where they've gone wrong, in the sense that they haven't had that framework set up for months now. Go on, Harry.
I've got a theory to put forward to the National League.
Okay.
I think all the 23 other clubs might disagree, but last game that was played was Halifax against Ebbsfleet. Halifax in the playoff position. We won the game. They go down, we're in the playoffs.
I can't argue it. I really can't argue it. You did play well that game, to be fair. Let's say Halifax aren't a team that say I'd be particularly worried about going into the playoffs, because the 2 times we've played them, they haven't really had, we'll go that much bite about them, because we played them with 10 men at Hewish Park and they had nothing. Like, we had 10 men for 80 minutes and won 2-0. Admittedly, the second goal was marginally offside. It's just about 10 yards. Worst offside call I've ever seen. But, like, on the kind of ebb and flow of that game, we battered them. Like, with 10 men, it was just baffling.
I mean, I know they spanked Ebbsfleet 5-1 first game of the season, but minor setback, major comeback, and that's what we saw at the Shea.
Yes, and you're going to be seeing next season in the National League South. Well, I do think we'll
leads on well to some predictions.
Yes.
For, what a playoff that we do all know that is going to happen. That is the National League playoffs, which are ever more likely. We'll start with you, Sam. What are your predictions going into the playoffs this year?
I can't go away from my heart, can I? Like,
Use this.
I've got to back the boys. So Yeovil are going to do it. I can't not. They're going up. Go on, boys. What's yours?
What are the ties? Just so I've got.
So it will be. I've got them here.
I think Yeovil hosts Barnet.
Yeovil Barnet, Bournemouth Halifax, and the winner of Yeovil Barnet will play Notts County, and the winner of Bournemouth Halifax will play Harrogate.
I reckon it'll be Bournemouth Harrogate, and then Yeovil not.
Yeah, I can agree.
I don't think Bournemouth are going to win that game.
It's the issue is who they've got contracted.
Bournemouth don't think Harrogate, but the from me was the Yeovil County game.
Oh, no.
Me and Sam spoke about this last week, and we both have a feeling that Notts are still training.
I'm not going to comment my opinions on this, but I would feel like they are, but just the fact they've announced the training squad particularly early, so I would imagine they are training now.
Yeah, I think Notts County. My heart's saying Yeovil. I really want Yeovil to
really
win
good
it.
second half of the season.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go Notts Harrogate final, and I'm gonna go Notts to go all the way up as well.
Oh, don't do this to me.
Sorry,
do this
mate.
to me. That's fine.
I think I agree. I agree with H.
Squad size in playoffs, just
They got a 25 man as well. Like, it's ridiculous.
Joke.
Yeah, it
joke.
does.
big squad, and I've got friends.
I do think, though, like, say next season, getting them and their kind of new financial muscle out of it will make the league a slightly more level playing field, because I think next season they were always going to be the favourites to shoot up because of, if they do go up, obviously, but having that, say, financial muscle and squad size, so on and so forth.
If they go up and 5 go down, it's a very competitive league next season financially.
Yes, I do. I can agree with that. Obviously everyone's going to be struggling with the impacts of coronavirus. There's no one particularly there off the top of my head that's massively well off. I think Wrexham are somewhat okay, but I might have to be fact checked on that. Eastleigh are okay as well, I think, financially, because they were sold by the guy that now owns Sunderland to a relatively wealthy guy, I think. And I can't think of anyone else that's particularly minted, as it were.
We were a theme park away from being the biggest financial.
You'll have to let one go, mate, I think. I think the theme park idea, it got let go pretty quick, mate.
That's why if we brought our local MP into it, we'd be down within seconds.
Oh, it's a real shame.
Loved by a few, hated by many. Absolute United FC.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we'll probably touch on this topic again next week when it's all a little bit more set in stone, and I'm sure the teams, at least in the National League, will probably be making their ways back to training, officially or not. But yeah, hopefully we can hear a bit more about that. And I kind of somewhat at the other end of the spectrum in football now, we have something else restarting this week. Mr. Dole, do you want to talk us through the Premier League?
The elite football is back.
That is the top 1%.
The Premier League returns Wednesday. We've got 2 games. We've got the only game where fans will be in the stadium, as Chris Wilder and Billy Sharp, Sheffield United, Aston Villa. What is going on there?
That's what you call a curtain raiser, isn't it? That is what's going to get all the public excited for Sheffield United against Aston Villa.
It's genuinely going from what will be an unbelievable direct game of football to at 8 o'clock, a tiki-taka, side-to-side Arsenal versus Man City game. And I'm just so excited for it to be back. It's like the Peep Show meme. Football. It's going to be brilliant.
Obviously, Deck, your side's involved in the first day. How are you feeling ahead of going into it?
I was confident after we won the pre-season friendly. Charlton we beat. I think we beat Charlton 6-0. Then I was like quietly confident. I was like, Pep Guardiola don't know what's coming here. And then we kind of flopped. We lost 3-2 at home to Brentford in a behind closed doors friendly as well. And then I was like, all that confidence is kind of just gone in one game. So, I mean, City are renowned for giving us a bit of a hiding in recent times. I don't think it will be as bad because I feel like the game will be a lot slower purely because they're just getting back into the swing of things. I don't think the game will be as fast paced as City may like. So I still think they'll win. Probably, I reckon 2-1 City. But I'd love it if Arsenal got a result there. It's been a while.
I think we're more likely going to see some bigger scorelines because the technically gifted players that you always hear like are so good in training are going to have that kind of training ground atmosphere around it. So I think your likes of, say, like Gabriel Jesus, even to be fair, Pepe, but I think that Man City side, without any external influence whatsoever, is going to batter you. And I'm
we're going to get ruined on Wednesday.
Like, they can hear Pep's every word.
Who took the drills? The Arsenal manager.
Exactly. Exactly, mate. Arteta is what made Pep Guardiola in this country.
Who loved the narrative?
Surely we're going to get a result.
In first 2 games, the narrative is actually beautiful.
It is good, isn't it? It is.
Nothing beats it.
I do think Man City beat you though. Like you can say whatever you want about Mikel Arteta.
I agree. I do agree. No, you know you're playing the top 6 side when I'm saying Arsenal are going to lose. So that's just the way it is.
Obviously, then we've got Man United Tottenham on Friday as well. Big Marcus Rashford's obviously had a great few weeks in terms of the things what he's done. So a lovely, nice shout out to him. But going into that, it's quite a tasty affair, to be honest. Obviously, Jose Mourinho coming against United for the second time since he left. quite a few players back from injury. Rashford, who we mentioned earlier, Pogba, Harry Kane, Heung-min Son as well. Like obviously returning from military duty. It's a ridiculous game with two full-strength sides that are probably very evenly matched.
Yeah, beginning of the season on paper. I mean, Bruno Fernandes is a player, but still on paper, probably two of the most evenly matched sides. As a Spurs fan, I've got another gripe because this morning it came out that Japhet Tanganga is going to be ruled out of the game. This is what I think. We've had all these players return from injury. I want to know what our medical staff's doing and what we're doing in training. Are we just having like a full-on Royal Rumble? Because we. I've read today, Eric Lamela in the first 6 years of his career missed 10 games. Since he's been at Spurs, he's missed 97 games of football. What is going on?
That's like pretty much 2 seasons.
It's literally, just imagine it, just all piling in on each other. But back to the game, I think it will be quite a balanced game. Even as I don't feel confident.
Do you not?
I do like the look of this Man United team. And,
yeah, I think it's explosive, isn't it? You see, you've got the likes of your Rashfords, your Martials, and you've got Pogba in behind. You've got options in that midfield, really, because Scott McTominay is a player who I will back to the hilt as an unbelievable footballer. Fred has really come into his own this season. Obviously, then you've got the likes of, say, your Pogbas, your Mattas, your Bruno Fernandes. Like, it's a ridiculous mix in that midfield.
I mean, I'm quite excited to see what I'd assume now after 3 months of what I would like to think he'd been doing fitness training, but a fully fit Tanguy and Ndombele.
Yes.
Quite excited to see him match up against Pogba in there, technically. That would be quite good. Nice to have Bergwijn back after playing 2 games and getting injured. Also, Son, Kane. Be interesting to see how much Kane plays in these tight period of fixtures, because I think we're Friday, Wednesday, Saturday.
It's a game every 3 days, isn't it, now until the end of the season? And there's pretty much a game on telly every day.
So, I mean, and Troy Parrott's out. So, in terms of what we do with a striker, it's going to be really managing Harry Kane to the best we can. So, it's going to be tough. I mean, the Spurs-Man United games, it's always quite a tight affair. I mean, I know we beat you 3-0 at Old Trafford last year, but there's been some times you've given us some good hidings. But recently, it's been a goal in it. And to be honest, I see that going Man United's way Friday night.
I do think if you look at the game earlier on in the season, as much as it was kind of, I think it was 2-1 or 3-1, it was quite a close scoreline. But
Man United dictated the game for the whole 20 minutes. I've not seen them play that well on the ball and look so comfortable in possession, probably since Van Gaal. I mean, like,
yeah,
not going to play.
Maybe this season we finished second under Mourinho. We were kind of battering sides a bit.
But in terms of ball playing, you just looked a threat every time you was on it.
I do think Rashford had a lot to play that game, though, because I think that definitely was his best game in a Man United shirt. Everything that was good about the game went through him. He ran that left channel brilliantly. I think he scored both goals as well. Like, it's just a really kind of overall brilliant performance for Manchester United, but especially Marcus Rashford.
And to be fair, even our goal in that, which pulled it back quite quickly, was just a moment of brilliance from Ali. So It's not like it's something that we were working towards where we had you on the back foot for 10 minutes. It was genuinely just plucking the ball out of the air, turning and volleying. It sounds so simple when you say it like that, but yeah, no, I do think
sometimes that's what settle a game, though.
Yeah, I will be shocked if we can get 3 points, and if you was to say to me now, take a point, I would.
Yeah,
it'll be an intriguing one.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a lot of the Premier League, though. That there's going to be moments of brilliance now that's going to kind of spark games because, as I say earlier, no external pressures. Who's the best players in the Premier League? This their chance to come to the forefront now because there's no excuses. They are on their own playing a game of football against 11 other men, and that's it. I kind of think the final game we probably should go into is Everton-Liverpool. Obviously,
that's exactly where
obviously, if Arsenal do a favour for Liverpool on Wednesday night, this could be their crowning moment after 20 plus years. Boys, what are we thinking out of that one?
I think Liverpool will be well up for it. I think even if City get a result against Arsenal, I think the fact that they have been given this opportunity to now actually win their title, because it is their title. Let's be honest. I think now that they've been given the opportunity, they're going to be really fired up. You can imagine Jordan Henderson in the changing room and in the dugouts before kickoff, going absolutely mental, trying to ramp these players up and get them ready for kickoff. You can already see it. I mean, to be fair to Jordan Henderson, he may not be the most gifted footballer, but I just imagine he is a really good motivator. And that's probably why he is captain of Liverpool, and he's been so instrumental for England in the last few years as well. I can just imagine them being really fired up. You know, a player like Salah, and I feel like Firmino, like you talk about with these players that really perform in training, this is going to be an opportunity. I feel like Bobby Firmino is that type of player who may not quite show everything, doesn't quite show everything on the pitch in front of thousands of people, but I can just imagine on training, technically, he's just absolutely unreal and probably blows people away. So he's going to be a player in that sort of bracket that may turn up and really turn on the style. So him and Salah might really prove to be really impactful in the last couple of games they need. I just see Liverpool being really fired up, and obviously that extra element of a Merseyside derby as well, which will hype up both sides, but that'll really be a catalyst as well to really drive Liverpool to 3 points, I'd imagine.
Talk about the other end of that spectrum as well. You've got Everton involved, who obviously haven't had the most spectacular of seasons, as it were. But is this kind of a good chance for, say, the likes of even a Jordan Pickford to come out and be like, look, I should be England's number one, because you've got Dean Henderson involved on Wednesday night, who could also continue to stake a claim, because you've got literally the nation's eyes on you now, because there's nothing else to really do at the moment. So, and football's largely on a lot of 3View platforms. So this is a great chance for everyone to prove themselves, well, especially the Everton-Liverpool game, because that's on 3View for everyone to watch. So I can imagine that'll pull a massive audience.
Yeah, I think everyone kind of has their individual motivations as well as the overall team motivation, which both clubs will have going into that one. But there's obviously a little bit of an added pressure because it's free to air and things like that. But I feel like these footballers are used to that now. They've been in the Premier League for so long. And even though it is, as you say there, it is maybe more pressure than they've ever experienced in their career, I'd imagine that they're just going to take that in their stride. So you might see, even though the fitness levels might not be up there, you may see someone like a Jordan Pickford really come out of his shell and really produce a few saves. Maybe his distribution might be very good as well for Everton. So we just have to wait and see, really. But I feel like Everton will want to spoil the party, even though I feel like an Everton win won't stop Liverpool winning the league anyway.
That's long gone.
Exactly. I think for the fans that aren't in the stadium, they'll be at least they'll be able to say, well, we beat that title winning side. So, but as I say, everyone's got their individual motivations. So I just think Liverpool will be well up for it.
Do we think Liverpool can go on to the rest of the season unbeaten? Well, obviously they have lost that one game now, but can they continue that, or at least regain that hot streak again?
Definitely.
I don't.
I know they've got to play City, and like we've mentioned, City, in terms of a training ground, they've got so many technical players that can change things. But this Liverpool team is mentally, that defeat in Kiev is probably one of the biggest switches I've seen of a football side in a long time. They literally look so hard to beat. You can see on the pitch, like there's not even been a time where they've actually been, like I know when they was against Watford, they sort of, once the second one went in, they sort of rolled over a bit. But I don't know if you two can actually remember a time off the top of your head where you thought you actually didn't back Liverpool to win a game this season. Because even going into that City game at Anfield, I still thought, you know what, they're going to win this.
Watching the game against United at Old Trafford, when United were 1-0 up, I never felt like we're going to lose this game. But I've always felt like they could score. But as those seconds ticked on, I know obviously Lallana scored like the 86th minute, but even after they got that goal, it wasn't like, oh, we're going to lose this. It was, I don't know, they seem to, their only real kryptonite is Old Trafford has been over the last few years. And it seems to continue to be, probably continue to be for the future. So they're quite lucky in the sense that they haven't got to come here again, but I don't think that would change anything. But apart from that, I think you're right in the sense that they haven't really. And the Atletico game as well, they were on top for all of it. And that was just a game where I just think the ball didn't drop for them.
Yeah.
No, I think with the away leg, the first leg at Atletico, I as soon as Atletico scored early on, I've seen Atletico do it so many times to the best teams in the continent, and I just, after watching that game, sort of, you knew by half time that Atletico were going to win, whether it was by 1 or 2. You knew Liverpool weren't going to score because they'd given almost everything in just that first half alone after they went behind. So I mean, they could have made a few substitutions, but you were looking at it thinking, well, what else can they really give? And I think once the game opened up at Anfield, it did work in their favour. But Atletico on the counter attack, they were just lethal.
You do look at an Atletico Madrid side, and on the defence especially, they are a freak of nature. And I know that you are a big fan of them, and you've seen them enough times.
No,
they're ridiculous. I think their back line, even with Trippier, they're just ridiculous. They've always been well drilled as well. Obviously, Simeone's. I think he's. I wouldn't want to watch him every week, one of his teams, but when you watch them on the one-off occasion, you are amazed by their shape and the way they can just track the opposition's players when they're trying to make runs.
So hard right now.
Exactly. I mean, I watched them over 2 legs in the Europa League semi-final against Arsenal a couple of years ago, and we just weren't going to score. We scored 1 goal, and even when they had 10 men at the Emirates for the majority of the first leg as well. We scored 1 goal halfway through the second half. But even if you get past that defence, you've got to get past arguably the best goalkeeper in the world as well, Jan Oblak.
I think he probably.
I've never seen. He probably is, exactly. And when that game at the Emirates, it's one of the best individual goalkeeping performances I've seen live. He other than the Lacazette goal, he saved everything, and he was actually robbed of a clean sheet pretty much as well. With 10 men, with 9 outfield players in front of him as well. They lost their Croatian right. I can't remember his name, but he was in the Croatian World Cup.
Vašáľko.
Yeah, that's the one. He got sent off really early on, so they only had 4 defenders and only 9 outfield players. So to do what they did against us, and I've seen them more times recently as well, they're just ridiculous. And at home, when they're playing at the Wanda Metropolitano, they are very difficult to beat. I think only Chelsea and a couple of other clubs have even beat them at their new stadium, so they really are just a joke defensively.
Over 2 legs, I think there's a stat about Diego Simeone teams that in the Champions League, the only teams they've actually lost to in a 2-legged tie is a team that features Cristiano Ronaldo. And I think that says it all. Because to go through Europe and beat pretty much everyone you can't forget, apart from that absolute freak of nature that man is, I think you can accept that as being they've become the nearly men of European football, to be honest, because any other era of football, I'd probably say maybe that prime Barcelona team in 2008, they might not, but any other kind of stretch of football, a team that good defensively would have won the Champions League at some point over that period. And they are so unlucky not to have, because now they've beaten probably one of the best teams the Premier League's ever seen, and relatively comfortably for their standards, to be honest. And I think that they don't get enough kind of commendation for that. And if you look in the context of football in history, they will go down as probably one of the best defensive sides of all time.
Yeah, I agree.
If you think, I remember watching the 2014 Champions League final, the Decima, and I think they went ahead quite early, and they was just defending for about 70 minutes, and you just didn't see Madrid scoring. You sort of gave up for Madrid, and then they scored. And even in extra time, you think they're not going to crack it. And I mean, it's so unfortunate. Was it a penalty to make it 2-1, and then just another 2 flew in?
Yeah.
If you look at the players they've had, like Courtois goes, replaces, get Oblak. Their transfer policy is just.
But they don't have Godin anymore.
They've had Falcao, Costa.
No, Godin's not there anymore.
Yeah.
Godin's not. I mean, it's just the way they're replacing
Lucas Hernandez, I think.
Yeah, and they've got Jimenez as well.
Yeah, they got Jimenez, so they're just ridiculous. They're you're right with the transfer policy. They're absolutely nuts. And you think Thomas Partey is one of the next big CDMs to come out of Europe as well. And there's
no doubt they'll replace him.
Exactly. They probably will end up replacing him with someone far cheaper and probably on the same level. So, you know what I mean? If Arsenal had that transfer policy, it'd be the best team in England for about 5 years. But, you know, these things happen.
Things are, if he wanted to, they could invest the money they get in getting like a Milinkovic-Savic or someone like that, who would have that kind of similar powerhouse in the midfield, obviously a bit more kind of box-to-box with him.
That does scream like a Simeone sort of player as well. He likes that sort of player.
Yeah, I agree.
He hasn't done it massively on the big stage, but I think that is a very Atletico Madrid transfer. Because they've got the Griezmann money as well still, which I don't think they didn't splash at all last summer, I don't think.
Morata's cost them a chunk of change, to be fair. I think he was about 60.
Yeah, I think Chelsea made a hefty profit on him.
Yeah, he was a lot of money.
Chelsea made profit on Morata. I think it was 17 million.
17. That's more than what I had in my head, to be fair. I thought they made about 5 million, but I'm
very surprised at that.
Chelsea transfers are not the top of my knowledge, I'm afraid.
No, not at all.
I'm worried about the third deal.
Yeah, so kind of going a bit vaster than the European stage now. Let's look back on the world stage, and the World Cup began 2 years ago this week, and some great memories, I think, for us Englishmen. What do you kind of take away from that summer? Go on, Deck, I'll let you start.
My only takeaway was that we can actually take penalties and score them, which is something I doubted before the start of this tournament. Obviously, Colombia beating them on penalties was probably the highlight for me personally. Unfortunately, I missed the Kieran Trippier free kick. It's a great story, actually. We were coming home from a Greek island, Crete, me and a few of my mates, and we were flying in from Gatwick, and we flew in and left Gatwick about 3 hours before kickoff. So around 4 o'clock in the afternoon I think it was a
Friday night.
Friday night, okay.
It wasn't. I don't know. I went out afterwards, and I don't normally.
Wednesday because the final was on the Sunday, so I don't assume.
Yeah, no, it must have been.
I thought it was a Wednesday. Anyway,
I had work at a shoe shop the next day, so it actually wasn't Wednesday.
I think I had work at M&S on the Thursday as well, so it may well have been a Wednesday. But we left in this cab from Gatwick about 4 o'clock, and I live. If the roads are clear, you get home in about an hour from Gatwick, from where I am, and it literally took the whole 3 hours to get home, and even a little bit longer.
That's one hell of a cab fare.
The traffic, luckily, it was a fixed cab fare, so that was all good. But what wasn't good was that there seemed to be loads of traffic until bang on 7 p.m, and all of a sudden the cars had disappeared, and so. For 5 minutes into the game, we were still getting back to mine, and as the cab pulled up outside my house, the guy had it on in the radio. He said, "Kieran Trippier is lining up for a free kick," as we pull into the road, and I was just like, "He's going to score this, and I'm going to miss it." And what happened? Exactly that. And I missed probably the best moment for many England fans for many, many years.
I still equate the Colombian penalty win as better than that. So that's feel.
Okay, that makes me feel a little bit better because I watched the whole of that and that was actually unreal.
Because so, yeah, I see posts on Twitter all the time, and it's like, this is where our life peaks, and it's that shot from in the middle of the crowd of Trippier's free kick mid-take, and I'm like, yeah, but when you put it into context, it's not. Obviously, it felt really good at the time, and like when it went in, everyone was like, no doubt we're getting to a World Cup final. But we were shocking that game. That's not the point.
I didn't feel good when that went
in. But yeah, I'm sure you didn't. But I always think the penalties, like, actually, that was what won us the game. Like, I was in a Wetherspoons at the time, and oh my god, the scenes! It was amazing. Like, I've never seen it. Like, the roof was disgusting right there. Like, it was just sticky. But it was like, honestly, and even Harry Kane's goal against Tunisia as well, I think it's kind of overlooked a little bit, but that was unreal as well. Like, admittedly, it was to beat Tunisia.
The back post. Yeah. No, that is
Zante out. So I was watching that one at home, and then the 6-0 in Panama, I was in Zante, and that was just odd. That was just so odd. Like, it was very much we was drunk, and we just keep seeing goals happening.
It felt like a
I
pre-season.
think it was just so funny. I remember cheering for Panama's goal because you just feel sorry for them. Oh, it did. It like when like they Norwich go to Lowestoft in pre-season just to support the locals. I didn't actually look at the Colombia one in the pub, which was a bit regretful now looking back on it. But the Trippier one went in, and just the pure elation, and then smelling of Carlsberg for like the next week.
Can I ask a question? Actually, I know that this practice happened before and has happened since the World Cup, but was mainly highlighted at this World Cup. Why do people throw beer when a goal goes in?
I don't know. I'm a culprit for it, and I don't know why I do it. I actually don't.
See, I've never done it ever, but I just don't understand. I don't get why.
I care more about the goal going in than the beer, so I forget I have a beer and I've got a beer can here. There's not one I've used, and like it just goes, and I don't know where it goes, but it just flies away and never to be seen again.
I'm a big advocate of limbs.
They support the limbs.
Please compose themselves and keep hold of their alcoholic beverage when they go.
I mean, in Dortmund last year when Spurs played, I was going to the toilet, so I was on the stairs. Sissoko threaded Kane through, and Kane scored. And just because I was on the middle, just so much beer come hitting me as I was walking down the stairs.
Oh my God.
I was just in the middle. It was honestly, I think there was more beer in that away and then probably the pub when Trippier scored against Croatia.
I don't know, because mine was like honestly, they had to replace the stuff on the roof
Ceiling.
after that World Cup. Yeah, ceiling, I meant that. Like it was disgusting. Like before they did it, you'd look up to it and it would just be a sad reminder of what happened. You're like, oh boys, remember that? And then be like, oh, we lost.
That's why if we'd have won that tie, then that Trippier goal would definitely have eclipsed the penalty shootout.
Oh, without a doubt.
I think when you look back at it with the context of how the tie panned out, you just for me you see the goal didn't get there.
Yeah, I remember when the full-time whistle blew. So there's in the pub there's like a little it was separated into areas, and like the area we was in, it was like a function room a bit. So there's a TV there and a TV there, and then like quite about space for about 150 people like in between, and you just hear a massive thud and someone has punched the TV screen. You just see half of the ITV studio. So it looked like Gary Lineker was just talking to him. Not Gary Lineker, was that ITV bloke was just talking to himself, and then the telly just started hanging off, and you just see this bloke getting picked up and carried out the camera. And then everyone just sat there like.
It was heartbreaking. I remember. I'll put some pictures on the screen while we're editing. But my town after England won, like to give context, I live in like this really quiet seaside town that's got like average probably 20,000 people in, a bit more in the summer when got the holiday makers. You don't understand what that place was like after England beat Colombia. I'll send you some pictures later, but they'll be on screen for those watching. Like there are people jumping on cars, like because it's like one long road down the high street, and there's like pubs dotted along it. And I was in the Spoons, that's like on the seafront, but we walked into town and then drove into town. And there's the rowdy pub, as it were, and there's like TVs outside and everything. And I've never seen a place like it. Like, we're not known to being football fans near me, but like the place was like going off. Like it was like in the concourse after you've just won the league. It was amazing.
I've got a similar story actually. If you're watching on YouTube, I'll send the clip to Sam because it's like a Snapchat video. It's about 10 seconds or whatever. So if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, just picture this scenario in your head. Basically, Eric Dyer just scored the penalty. There's people jumping on pool tables next to me and like yanking down the pool table lights.
Oh my God, yeah.
Now you have like low pool table lights. People are like throwing them down. And then because this pub was literally the most anti-social distancing pub probably in the country. They fit so many people in this pub. It was unbelievable. And literally just spilled out. I think someone fell, I may be wrong, but someone may have fell out a window because it was like, when people were like going out once the penalty had gone in. This car park probably had about 20 cars and there's just people everywhere and literally we're all just singing It's Coming Home. And
Yes.
like, I think every single person that was inside the pub ended up in the car park for about half an hour, just singing "It's Coming Home" on loop. And if football didn't peak me on that day, then I cannot wait for what the future holds in the sport, because that was just ridiculous.
I think that's just how it felt at the time, wasn't it? Because the feeling after we won that was that we could take on the world, and that night is unmatched. I'm sorry, but we were like driving through town, like the last minutes coming home, like past that pub when it was wild and stuff, like unbelievable. Like I cannot get over that night.
To be fair, as an England fan, that whole summer is just unmatched.
Yeah, I regret not going.
Could you imagine it being like if we went far in 2016? Because like we'd have just left like school, was it like year 11?
Yeah.
I feel like 2016 was some reason life just felt so much easier back then.
Yeah, but the issue is then we
we
wouldn't
didn't
have been able to go out to drink.
We didn't work part time. Yeah, that too, actually.
I'm sure.
I remember for the
Some of us
Croatia
may
game,
have found a way around it, but legally, you would have not been drinking.
Croatia game, I had to get to the pub. So what was it? It was a 7:30 kickoff. I had to get to the pub. Like whatever. I know I had to get to the pub for 2:00 because that's when they were reopening after like moving all the tables from a usual day in the pub. So I was just sat in the pub for about 5 hours, just waiting.
I can't remember what time I got there. Not that early. We had a spot.
You know the ITV like intro, like the dun 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 dun. Dun, dun. So when that came on the screen, people actually celebrated because they'd been there hours just waiting for the pre-match to come on.
That's amazing.
And while you were sitting there for 5 hours drinking beer, I was stuck on the M25. So yeah, cheers. Thanks for that, mate.
Okay,
To be honest, mate, I remember because I went after the loss. I went across the road to the Chinese and just sat there, just half-arsedly eating some prawn crackers while I waited for my food to be cooked, and just thinking, I'm never going to recover from this. And then a year later, my beloved Spurs forgot to turn up in a Champions League final, and it was the exact same feeling.
I remember that night. It was because I watched it with all my mates from home, and so afterwards it was a Wednesday. Being a Wednesday, it makes sense now. Like the local club to us has £1 drinks that night, so we'd all agreed to go out, and like we'd all kind of low key thought we were going to win it because. As much, I think I was the only one that was a little bit worried, to be fair, about Croatia. But everyone else was like, "Oh, it's Croatia, they'll be fine." But Croatia are quite good, as we saw. But yeah, so we have the most. After we lose the game, we go to one of my mates and have the most depressing pre-drinks you'll ever see. Like we're just sat on his sofas playing a game of cards, and then we get in this club, right? And there's these, obviously everyone's come out after the England game, so there's people in England shirts. And they play It's Coming Home, and I'm like, what are you doing? It's obviously not. I think I walked out.
Fucking French.
Oh, God.
Like, it was honestly just one of the most sad moments of my life, I think. It was awful.
The thing is, that summer was unmatched though, because it was really hot. What I remember now, why it was so good, because it was really hot in England for weeks. I remember this now. I think even as well. Yeah, you were in Zante. I was in Malia when we beat Sweden, which was a bit of an anticlimactic game. I think we were expecting it to be quite anticlimactic. we were expecting it to be quite anticlimactic anyway.
Yeah, Sweden, it was a game that was we've
had problems with Sweden. We've had problems with Sweden in the past, but they weren't on our level at all that day.
No.
But then obviously you had even little things like Drake coming out at Wireless with the England shirt on, you know, things like that, which like at the time, you look back at that now and you think, why did he do that? But at the time, I was like loads of people were just like, this summer it's got to be like one of the best. And, probably is the best, actually, to be fair, I think.
I agree. Because
now we're talking about stories are just coming back and back and back, isn't they? Like the Sweden game, like you mentioned there, I got disciplined at work because in the shopping centre we worked, outside the front was like the Sky people. I don't know if you've got them in your shopping centres. And they had the game on. So I kept walking out with like the tablet to scan shoes and stuff. And I just kept walking out the front and just like peeping. And then I had a half-hour lunch and I was gone for 70 minutes.
Yeah, I did the same. I was working at Tesco's at the time, and that was the only game I missed for work. And I was quite impressed with that because before I signed up for that job over that summer, I was like, right, I'm going to book days off when England could have games. That was the one time I got it wrong. And honestly, it was, but we had a break room and you could just choose when you had your own breaks. And because I was temp staff, it was quite easy to hide. So I missed the first 10 minutes, watched the game up until half time, did a little bit more work, went back up for the rest of my break for the last half an hour, whatever, then watched the rest of the game in the toilet. So I missed 10 minutes of that game.
And just to let any future employers that are listening know, we are very hard-working individuals for your company.
Oh yeah,
we don't do this sort of stuff, all right?
No, we've learned from our lessons now. We would have taken holiday for the full 4 weeks of game.
yes. And
but the
I
Russia
didn't do that
Saudi
again.
Arabia game, I even hid in the toilet and watched about 25 minutes of that.
That was a good game though, wasn't it? They battered them.
Yeah,
Was that the first game?
Yeah,
Tournament? Yeah,
I was in sick
yeah.
form at the time, and because it was obviously kicked off after the games finished, and loads of people were trying to revise. But there's a big projector at the front of our the massive study room we were in. So I logged onto that computer, turned the projector on, and watched that game. And everyone's like, "Oh, we're trying to work." I was like, "I want to watch the football." And then our head of year comes in, and everyone's expecting to tell me off, and he just sits there and watching it with me.
What a hero!
It was amazing.
To be fair, if we won, I think I probably would have been let go from that job because I worked Thursdays, Sundays. I was doing overtime that Saturday of the Sweden game, so
Yeah.
I didn't actually have to be there. I just took it a month in advance. And I definitely wouldn't have come into work. I just would have done a no-show and just been in the pub. So I probably would have been let go. So Mandzukic, you kept me working for a solid few more months. Snake.
Yeah, but I like to reiterate what Deck said. We have learnt from our mistakes, and we won't do that again. And hopefully, our jobs would be involving being there rather than skipping work for said events. What a summer! We'll look at
kind of a Tunisia game though. I can assure you that any employers.
I watched a concerning amount of football that summer. But we won't get into that. We'll look a little bit ahead now. Obviously, we were supposed to have a tournament this summer, but do you think that tournament, the World Cup, has given you hope in the sense of going into Euro 2021 now?
I sound like every England fan that's ever lived, but it actually has, and I don't think it should have.
No.
I feel like Germany have got what this. This is why I feel confident. It's just breaking down other teams. France is still probably cream of the crop. Germany, I feel like they've got worse.
I agree.
Belgium on the decline.
Yeah, Vic, who are their best players now? Hazard hasn't exactly had the best of seasons. De Bruyne's in his prime, and you can't take that away from him. Lukaku's very good, I think, especially on the international level, but he's not going to be a player that I think is going to scare opposition.
Derek Boyata's like the replacement for Vincent Kompany.
And the fact that Wales beat them at Euro 2016 can fill me with confidence.
Yeah.
Maybe that was 5 years ago by the time
Holland have got better, but I still think we could probably beat them.
Yeah, we were unlucky in the Nations League. I thought we played well that day.
Yeah, I agree, actually.
Italy...
No, we beat Italy.
We would beat them. They've got better. Spain, I'm confident we would beat.
So am I. I think they're terrible. Apart from Ramos, who have they got as a world-class player?
Yeah, but even Ramos, I close my eyes before I go to sleep and I just see Eric Dyer just...
To be fair, that performance in Spain is what gives me hope that we are a genuine contender, because that night we were unbelievable.
Yeah, absolutely. Raheem Sterling run the show that night. He was ridiculous.
And you think those attacking options we've got, Jadon Sancho, Marcus Rashford, Harry Kane, Raheem Sterling. It's unbelievable. When have we had that?
We got wingers coming through as well. Hudson-Odoi.
Our cam are probably one of the best in the world. Like Mason Mount, Dele Alli, James Maddison and Jack Grealish.
Yeah. You've even got the likes of, say, your Browns and Williams who could have come through by then. because he's a very, very good fullback. I don't think people are talking about him enough because of
And Ashley
Mason
Young and
Greenwood.
Danny Rose were in the 2018 ones. And Luke Shaw, did Luke Shaw
Luke
go?
Shaw didn't go. No, I think he was injured at the time. But Luke Shaw's been very good this season as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And you've
So,
got Chris Smalling playing out of his skin in Italy.
Well, yeah, of course. You actually forget about him because he's not playing in the Premier League, which is an easy thing to do, actually, considering
the
most English
wildest
players
thing happened in Italy was Ashley Young's hair growing back.
It's
I saw
mad.
that. He's got an immaculate hairline.
He's got a
He
right angle
unbelievable.
He
everything.
chose to be bald for 10 years when he had no reason to.
Unless he's on a transplant and he's just not told anyone.
Them Italian doctors.
But I just am
we-
confident.
We got Chilwell at left back as well. Don't forget.
Trent,
Alexander-Arnold can kind of play anywhere.
yeah. I think
Saka.
right back we had Trippier for the last tournament. Now we have the best right back in the world. Harry Maguire's come on leaps and bounds. And then I think the only other...
Sergio Aurier played for England.
You got Wan-Bissaka as well if you want to chuck him. Like honestly,
I do like Wan-Bissaka, but he probably will spend most of that tournament on the bench.
yeah, of course. It is literally just where you want to play Trent. That's all it is. If you want to chuck him centre mid,
If
you
you
can.
play Trent in centre midfield, then Wan-Bissaka will get games.
Yeah, that's literally it.
Carl Walker being taken to a tournament as a centre half.
Don't think we won.
Taking it too far.
We got to a World Cup semi-final with a back three of Kyle Walker, John Stones, and Harry Maguire.
Yeah, and then in the biggest moment with like 10 minutes to go, they just forgot how to mark over their shoulder.
Yeah, I
John
do enjoy
Stones
that it is.
gave up in that
Yeah.
extra time.
Like, it is like like something that you think we probably would go far again, but
We go far. It's just whether we win it or not. I think we get. I feel confident we might get to a final.
no, in our luck, we come second in our
Really?
group and end up
Yeah.
making the 16.
We're definitely
Nah.
a semi. Definitely
Yeah,
a
I
semi.
think we're
Really? Nah, I'd
Yeah.
say quarters.
No, we're
Quarters.
top four. I didn't even mention Portugal, but I still think we'd beat them as well.
It's just Ronaldo, isn't it?
Portugal are a dark horse, though. You think they're rubbish, but
Oh,
then
they're rubbish.
somehow they just turn up. They won the Nations League and the Euros.
What is Ruben Neves going to do when Eric Dyer comes steaming through?
Eric Dyer is not going to be playing in England. Harry.
I feel like this is where my Sam Allardyce style of management is at level above Gareth Southgate.
Which lasted him all of one game as England manager.
Scored that brilliant penalty. He's probably given us the two of the best England moments of the last 10 years, with the tackle on Ramos and the penalty. But at the end of the day, he's not very good. Well, not very good for that standard.
Free kick against Russia gets overlooked as well.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I saw that goal the
I was
other
thinking
day.
about that
I
as
am
well.
baffled that we didn't win that game. I don't think he's taken a free kick since.
I do still think he's taken come onto a pitch for England with 5 minutes to go and just shut the door.
Then we bring him on against Colombia, then go on and concede, and everyone's like, "Oh, why is Eric Dyer on the pitch?" Because
He
we
scored
had-
the winning penalty.
look at the team that finished the game against Colombia. It is terrible. It's so I think we had two. I think our midfield was made up of 2 out of 3 defenders. Like it was terrible.
One thing that actually gets my nerves thinking back at that Colombia game is if we lost, I actually probably wouldn't have never forgiven Jordan Henderson for doing kick-ups from the halfway line to the penalty spot and then missing.
Oh, yeah, when he done the kick. Oh, yeah. Remember that.
It's like Gary Neville when he was going, about Arsenal, they're walking at Wembley. He's doing kick-ups. He's doing kick-ups.
Oh, that's amazing. Do you think it's time for the hypothetical now?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, okay.
Right. So, this week's then. It's a bit inspired by, we spoke about this briefly last week, not on the podcast, but obviously The Last Dance has done the rounds over the last few months, and it's being probably one of the greatest sports documentaries of all time. So, if you can make a documentary about one player or team, past or present, don't have to be any good, who would you make one about and why?
So many ideas.
Do you want to have a think, Harry, or do you want to go?
Please go, because I need to think. This is tough.
Oh, really? I think the first thing that pops into my head is either Thierry Henry or the Invincibles, which is kind of a mix of the two. You can kind of do it like Jordan, like Henry was Jordan. You know, Bergkamp was Scottie Pippen. You know, things like that. You can kind of, Dennis Rodman was Patrick Vieira.
I don't think he was. I don't think he really would bleach his hair green, Patrick Vieira.
So lucky to have
He doesn't
had-
come across as that sort of character, does he? Yeah, I definitely do the Invincibles team because I don't, for some reason, I just don't think there's enough about them in the media. Like, they get brought up a lot, but you never really find out about players like Lauren and, you know, things like that. So there's players that were in that team that don't get any media attention at all. So I'd probably say them for me.
I would want it to be fair. All right, now you're about to see the levels between someone who supports a team who have won lots of Premier Leagues and a team who have won a League Cup in the last 12 years. I'm probably going to go back to Eric Dyer because that would be one hell of a documentary.
To be fair, he has a brilliant story.
Growing up in the favelas of Lisbon. Oh, there's not favelas in Lisbon. is
There's
there?
not at all.
No, no, there's not.
I was like, you said favelas then, and I was like, do you think he's South American? Like, I was really.
Oh, well, either way, he's growing up out there. He's bullying Portuguese kids, just kicking them around for fun. Comes to England. He gets named in the starting lineup against West Ham, Poch's first game, and you're thinking, what is going on? And then he finds himself rounding Adrian in the first minute when he's meant to be playing centre half. And then single-handedly winds up a whole Chelsea 11 as we've thrown the league title away.
Oh yeah, that was actually good.
Then scores against Russia. Then all this stuff we spoke about. It actually would be quite a good documentary.
I do think I actually can back that. That's a really good
Failing
story.
that, Jong-Min Son, Black Ops 4.
No way. No way. Oh my god. Saving Private
that.
Sonny. That's the title. That's the title right there. I was thinking for mine. Maybe that Birmingham side that won the Carling Cup. I think that had some characters in it.
I would give anything to watch that. I thought about this the other day because Bowyer's linked with the Birmingham job, and all my Cheltenham friends were breaking down and thought, no, Nicola, Obafemi, we're getting together.
Or you could go for that Wigan team that won the FA Cup.
Yeah, that would be better. I'd watch
Or even, I want to do a Leicester team, but the year before they won the Premier League. I want to see that
that.
great escape.
Bible.
Yeah.
I thought you meant you wanted to see the
Do
holiday.
both. Do both.
Oh, I'd happily see that. Get Nigel Pearson in, see what he's got to say. I think that's a brilliant story.
We know
You've done it
exactly
similar to the Last Dance, where you go all the way back and like where the team built.
You
Start
go
with
back
when they first
to
signed
the
Jamie
Troy
Vardy or something.
Deeney missed penalty. The knockout missed penalty and the Troy Deeney moment. Like, you've got flashbacks. That's amazing.
Exactly. You could do it like where it's Leicester City, but it's Jamie Vardy as well, because they did plan to do a Jamie Vardy documentary. I don't know how far into development that is, but there was definitely rumours of that going round a few years ago.
It was supposed to be a film,
but
I
yeah,
think.
I'd watch it. Maybe a film then, but either way, I'd definitely watch something on Leicester, because that story, even now, you couldn't write it. It's so good.
I'm still
Not
so
so
bitter about it.
And you come third as well. You have nothing to
Yeah,
be
I
bitter
know.
about. You got battered by Newcastle on the last day, and we
That
picked
was
the second.
so funny, that game. Like, they had 10
Lucky
minutes
it
on, it was
wasn't
like
on TV.
5-0, 4-0.
Well, I would have smashed that.
You're lucky that wasn't on TV, H, honestly.
You know what? I'm so used to it now. Like, it's just wake up, feel disappointed, go back to sleep.
Tottenham that. And Ebbsfleet
Do you
that.
feel like Tottenham have peaked now?
Oh, 100%.
You
You're
don't
not
think,
making
you don't
another
think
Champions
I'll
League
get
final
to
for a
another
while.
Champions League final for a while?
They'll do it one more time in my lifetime. That's praying I stay healthy and live a prosperous life.
If you hit the average age rate, you're
Come on, then. Hit me with it.
wait, what?
What's the average age rate?
That's like 79, I think, off the top of my head.
Do you
Yeah,
think,
I'll stick with it. We will win the Champions League.
2079 Tottenham will get to a Champions League final?
We will win a Champions League by then.
That means
Bold
we'll win
statement.
one as well.
I don't know.
Deck, you will be the record holders for that new European competition, the one below the Europa League. You would run it 7 times by then.
Honestly, I
Sounds
reckon
like-
English teams are going to batter that. But it's gonna without because the consistency through our league of quality is much better than teams elsewhere. By watching the Bundesliga, everyone has realised that recently. So I think you'll have
That's
the
why the
likes of
Bundesliga is so good. They can't defend.
yeah,
That's what makes it good.
you'll have the likes of Everton and that.
Wolves in the Europa League have been like so fun to watch.
They have.
Mm.
I think
And, like,
they're a team that'll go into that and do well.
What's someone going to do when like Newcastle turn up at like Angie Matula?
And it's
Remember
like
the day
that,
I had, like,
thousands of them.
That was a Europa League fixture. It was I saw it on TikTok yesterday. Someone posted the highlights.
do you remember when they had Samuel Eto'o on £1 million a week?
Yeah,
Yes.
Roberto Carlos at left back, Chris Samba at centre half.
I still think the maddest thing about that is they had all them players and they weren't living in Makachla because it was literally Dagestan and was full of tanks shooting at people. Literally, these pro footballers were living in like Moscow or something and flying over. I think they were training in Moscow and then flying over for games and that because it was just
Actually quite
unsafe to live there. How they had them on contracts, I do not know. It gives Newcastle with their new Saudi
another
owners all the
documentary
power in the
to
world.
watch. The story of Angie Matula. And do you remember Dnipro got to the Europa League final and lost to
Yes.
Sevilla? One day
Yeah.
Ramos was their manager. Big up. But they had a side. They were actually battering teams that year.
Did they have Konoplyanka?
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say, I remember because that's how he got the move to Sevilla, I think, because I saw him in
Yeah.
that game.
He knocked them out the year after, and Adebayor scored twice against them.
Oh, man. What we've got some great stories out of it.
I think Anzi are in the second or third tier of Russia now.
I was going to say,
They
I
definitely
haven't
got
seen him on FIFA.
They definitely got relegated at least once.
Do you know what
Because
the
they
owner
lost all their money. I think the owner got, genuinely, I think the owner got bored and
Do
left.
you know who supports
Which
them or like goes to watch their games? Do you know Khabib Nurmagomedov?
Yeah.
When
He
beat McGregor, he done like a meet and greet in the stadium, and it was like full.
I think it is the biggest stadium in Dagestan.
It's like he's like the biggest like sort of celebrity in that part of the world. And they've had Roberto Carlos and Samuel Eto'o and Chris Samba. Sorry.
Chris Samba and Roberto Carlos and Samuel Eto'o.
That side is
Anzi is definitely the Russian version of Truro getting to the Premier League.
No, because Truro are a massive, massive club already.
so
Biggest club in Cornwall.
Way bigger than Anzi.
I bet more people know about Truro City than they do of Angie said that Anzi Morocco or whatever it is.
That was like the worst McDonald's burger ever.
I mean, no disrespect to any Anzi Marrakesh fans.
True.
Oh man!
I mean, I'm sure they're all watching. They are big fans of the My Balls, My Rules podcast. I'm sure they enjoyed all the England chat earlier.
If I have a Russian knock on my door, I'm going to be worried. All right.
There's definitely going to be yellow flares coming through windows.
I'm sure they'll make their way to sunny Somerset.
I'm going to keep my eye out.
Yeah, you two are probably the most at risk being the nearest to big city.
A myth. They won't come near it.
No,
Well, hard, mate.
we'll be all right.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good place to end it, boys. Yeah, thank you all for listening and watching this week. I wasn't expecting any, say, Anzi, Makala, or whatever chats. Interested one this week, boys. We'll see you all next week, hopefully. If the world lets us, I don't know. I was just trying to figure out something to say then, but my brain escaped me.
If I don't overload on Premier League football by next week, then we'll see you then.
Yeah, we'll actually have actual football to talk about, which will be quite good fun. We'll probably talk about the National League's decision and the more of the kind of fallout from that. So yeah, boys,
change their mind.
thank you for coming. I've done the YouTube salute again, and we'll see you all next week.